Good evening and welcome to Thursdays with NAMI. My name is Peg Morrison. I'll be your host tonight. I am the interim director of NAMI North Carolina. I'm glad you're here. Thursdays with NAMI is our way of building conversations and building community on the topic of mental health. Tonight's guest is my friend. He's sitting right here with me in the studio, Scott Satalino. We met over coffee. He makes a wonderful matcha latte. And for those of you who've been visiting with us before we started officially, I used to call him my matcha man. I feel like that's when we truly became friends somehow. Anywho, I learned as I got to know him better that Scott has experience with depression and alcoholism, and he understands the tools that help with recovery. He's currently involved in launching a social welfare organization to lobby for true universal health care, mental health care for all. And also he wants to talk about the criminalization of addiction. That's also a serious problem. We'll be talking with Scott in just another moment. As usual, the first part of our show will be an interview. Partway through, we'll show a fun, lighthearted video of the week. We get a little heavy on Thursdays with NAMI. And then we'll spend time taking questions from you, members of our virtual studio audience on Zoom and Facebook Live. Now we're going to have a quick word from our sponsors. Thursdays with NAMI is funded in part by the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Use Services through the Federal Community Mental Health Block Grant Fund. We appreciate their guidance and their support. Now, without further ado, welcome, Scott.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right, it's a pleasure. So we always like to know the background of our guests. Maybe you can tell us about yourself in a nutshell.
Yeah. So, I mean, in a nutshell, why I'm here is changing thing for me was 2008. And in 2008, I worked for the Obama campaign in Florida and was very involved. Literally, I had my own construction business, so I made really good money. I spent the last year of my father's life. Well, he passed away in 2010. So 2008 and part of 2009, I spent mostly every day with my father. And we talked about politics. We talked about a lot of issues in life. It was really wonderful to get to know him because when I was growing up, my parents were separated, divorced eventually. And that's part of my mental health issues. I had a lot of alienation as a child because of that. But 2008, I worked for the Obama campaign and helped them set up an office down in Florida. Worked directly with the office in Chicago as well, and in every aspect of the campaign. And it motivated me into wanting to work in politics, not necessarily as a politician, but just in the field and more communications. I'm a graduate of Emerson College, where I studied performing arts. I was an acting major, and I minored in literature and studied communication. So that was in 1992 when I graduated there. So communication and media has always been in my head since then. It was during the Gulf War, 1991-92, when I was there, and we had symposiums in the evening. I was acting all the time. I was in shows. I ran a coffee house as a musician. I worked in the scene shop. I played on sports teams. I was always busy, but in the evenings I broke free and I went to these symposiums about the coverage of the Iraq War, and graduates from Emerson College who are very active in media and television were there, and they were telling us that what we were watching on TV was not really what was going on. And that was quite an eye-opener. Fast forward from 1992, I worked for the Obama campaign, and about a month before the end of it, end of his campaign, a month before the election, was the issue of TARP and bailing out the banks. And what happened was Americans were calling their Congress people 20-1 against it, saying, don't do it, let the banks go under. They made mistakes, it's their fault, don't bail them out. And Congress voted not to bail them out. About 2-3 days later, the Secretary of the Treasury, Henry Paulson, under the Bush administration, went up to Capitol Hill and with a 2-page letter, and for some reason, Congress magically changed their mind. They voted for TARP. And so just relating to Barack Obama, he came off the campaign trail. He was a senator. He went back to the Senate. He voted for TARP. John McCain suspended his campaign. He went back to the Senate. He voted for TARP. And I thought, well, wait a second. If they're both voting for TARP, what's the difference between them? And I started to begin to see that maybe Barack Obama wasn't really all about hope and change. It's just slightly. Once he was elected, I felt a lot of ease, and I was very overwhelmed with, the work I did, and it was a great feeling. I thought he might be killed. I feared for his life because he was going to change things like JFK did, what happened to JFK. But as I went along, I started doing transition team events, and I saw that the Obama administration was not really fulfilling what they were saying about change. They were bringing in all the old people. They were corporate. They ended up corporatizing healthcare. They didn't really reform healthcare. And it just motivated me to want to be further involved in politics. And I started an organization, didn't really go anywhere with it, called Progressive Change for America. I moved to Raleigh in 2009, and with the intent to be more involved in politics. Why Raleigh? It was a place I'd never been, but someone had suggested I, move here and get out of Florida, which I'm glad I did. I'm no longer very fond of Florida as a place. I have relatives there. They're not fond of it either. They wish they could move. Friends of mine that live there. Pretty much everyone I know wishes they could get out of Florida. But anyway, I moved to North Carolina, wanting to move to Washington to be involved in politics. But a friend of mine said, you don't go to the lion's den unless you're a lion tamer. And it was a good point. So I came here and lived in downtown Raleigh for the past 14 years now. And in 2012, I started the organization, Political Media Research Team. And I've been observing, researching, and interviewing people in both political parties. I just happen to live a half a mile to the left is the Democratic Party, and a half a mile to the right is the Republican Party headquarters. So I live right between both of them, a mile from the governor's office in the Capitol, and I've had access to be able to do what I want and go in and interview everyone and really observe and research what's going on, as well as nationally. So that's what I'm currently doing. And that's my passion in life. I'm currently launching a Political Media Research Team Action, which is a social welfare organization. And two of the major issues that I'll be working in is healthcare and mental health care. And I see a severe lack of people. I mean, I know people that don't have access to healthcare. Even if they do have access, healthcare is not affordable. And I've really spoken recently about this issue, and it's mentioned that healthcare is a right. Well, if something is a right, the word affordable doesn't come into play. Why is something, if you think of something as a right, your right to free speech, you don't have to pay for anything for it. Your right to a trial by jury is not something you have to pay for. It's your right.
Okay.
So healthcare being a right, should be something that everyone has access to, and no other country uses the word affordable when they speak about healthcare.
All right. So of course, this is NAMI and we're neutral on everything. If you dislike Obama or love Florida, we're cool with that. We're a rainbow coalition of love and recovery. So
Yes,
um
and I don't dislike Florida or Obama.
okay. Yeah, but I think a huge important takeaway is the healthcare system in this country. Our outcomes are not as strong as other developed nations. Our affordability compares very badly with other developed nations. But I don't want to steer too much on policy or politics because you have a great mental health story too. Tell us about, you've struggled with depression and alcoholism. What have those looked like for you?
Yeah, so my parents were separated when I was younger, and eventually divorced. And my parents, didn't. I kind of lived in a fractured home, where my father wasn't always there, and my mother was an alcoholic, an active alcoholic. So I didn't realize, when I was 7 or 8 years old, that I was pouring a vodka for her when she was making dinner. I didn't
Oh,
even didn't really have any idea what vodka was, at that age. But mom was an active alcoholic, and I do want to say that she at the end of her life, she had many years of recovery, and I had a beautiful relationship with her. And she turned, my mother was, when she passed away from cancer, she was young, but she was the most beautiful person I knew. I could see the love in her eyes. She lost her hair when she had cancer, and she was very self-conscious about it. And I looked in her eyes and I said, I wish I had what you have, because she was spiritually very very beautiful. But I grew up with alienation. I didn't feel like I fit in. I felt different than all the other kids, because all the other kids had two parents with them whenever they went anywhere. I didn't. It seemed to me that all the kids I knew, my friends, so to speak, had happy families. The mothers and fathers were there. My father was maybe a workaholic, if there was such a thing, but he stayed away from home also because he didn't want to be with my mother. And I had this feeling of alienation. I was different. I didn't know how to deal with it. And when I was 13 years old, I found the magic elixir, which was alcohol, and marijuana. And me and the buddies that I hung out with, we smoked and drank. And when I drank, I felt normal. And it stayed that way for many years, well into my 20s. People would say to me, maybe you should stop drinking. Maybe you should go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I had family members would suggest that. Even one of my good friends, he says, you're just too carried away. You need to get some help. And I thought, these people are crazy. This is my solution. Why would I want to give up my solution? I couldn't picture life without it. So I went on drinking probably until I was about the age of 26 or 27. And at that time, I just had my sister was in a rehab in Florida, and I went down for a family visit. When someone's in rehab, they usually invite the family in to treat the family because it's a family disease. And I went there, and they convinced me to stay, and I stayed in the rehab, and then went into a halfway house. And that began my road to sobriety. I wish I could say that I stayed sober ever since that time, but I didn't. And I don't feel any shame about that. Relapse is actually a part of the disease concept. If it wasn't a disease, there wouldn't be relapse. But I did stay sober for a time. I went back to college. I was able to graduate, get a degree in theater arts, 2 degrees actually. Um, I began working as a musician. I worked as a musician and actor for the good part of 6 or 7 years, which was a goal of mine. And I stayed sober for about 8 or 9 years continuously. I did relapse again, and then from about the year 2000 until today, I've had, intermittent years of sobriety, and other times when I've had drinks. Um, Currently, I'm sober today, not necessarily for a long period of time, but I really, I have this friend on Facebook. She said this the other day. She said, I don't I don't know that I have much wisdom. She says, I think I just don't do the things I used to do because I'm just too old now. So one of the reasons I tend not to drink much today is because for my health. And I want to live longer, and drinking heavily or drinking a lot is not good for my heart. So it's a reason that helps keep me sober. I also have other friends that I talk to who battle the same issues, but stay sober and try to stay sober. And I talk to them, and we help each other.
Mhm. It's
As
interesting.
far as mental health, alcoholism is a mental
Yeah.
health issue. Um, I've also had other mental health issues. You know, I could say I'm a recovering Catholic, and then I don't have anything against Catholics, or Florida or Barack Obama, for that matter. But
For the record.
I just want to say, like, spiritually, I've learned, many things and many concepts that I was taught when I was younger were just not true. And I used to believe a lot of things. A friend of mine who was also in Alcoholics Anonymous said, he said, you believe in fantasy, you watch TV, and the things you see on TV, they're not reality. And I believe that today. I believe believe a lot of what I see, when if I do watch TV, a lot of it is fantasy. It's celebrity guided stuff.
Hmm.
It's messages are given to us.
Tell us about
Yeah.
depression.
Yeah. Okay. So depression, what is depression like? Depression is just not wanting to get out of bed. Depression is dark. It's a darkness. Is no interest in living. No interest in things you used to do. When
Yeah,
I've had bouts
I
of
get that.
when I've had bouts of depression, I would not do things that were things that interest me.
Yeah.
I would sleep a lot. Didn't want to get out of bed. That's really what I would say about depression. A little over a year ago, if I skip down to one of your later questions and answer that, is that okay?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay. So a little over a year ago, in March of 2022, I had to stop working. I was sick. Felt like I had the flu every day. And just as an aside about our healthcare system, I had always heard that people in Canada had to wait 30 days to see a doctor. Well, I had a silver healthcare plan, and it took me 30 days to see a doctor.
Oh.
I called to make an appointment. It took me 30 days. Well, it's not
Mhm.
true in Canada. You don't have to wait 30 days. And here either, if it's urgent, we have urgent care. So I went to urgent care. I couldn't wait for my doctor's appointment. That was 30 days later. And I went to urgent care several times. Nothing was helping. It felt like I had the flu every day. Um, I couldn't sleep. I was coughing excessively, coughing up mucus, and eventually I ended up in the hospital. And uh, it was suggested I go to the hospital, and by urgent care, because nothing they were doing was helping. So I went to the hospital. They really didn't do much for me. It was just like an extended urgent care visit with a couple of tests, extra tests.
Mhm.
And the doctor sent me home and told me to take cough medicine. And several days later, I woke up, I could not breathe.
Wow.
So I called 911. Uh, I called 911 and was taken to the emergency room, and I was
That's scary.
diagnosed. Yeah, very scary. I couldn't breathe. It was very scary. It was a struggle to, I just, put my clothes on, tried to lock my door, bring my ID with me, my phone, and this was like I was gasping and waiting for them to come, securing my cats, and they came and took me to the hospital. And I was diagnosed with chronic bronchitis, among other things. Um, and throughout that month, then I had gone to primary care doctors and had seen a bunch of doctors, and was diagnosed with long COVID. Every day I woke up, I was fatigued.
Mhm.
The fatigue never went away. It's still with me today. I still have it, severe fatigue. Um, it's just, it's hard to describe how it prevents you from doing anything. Um, I went through the summertime, very, very sick.
Mhm.
I had made an appointment with a pulmonologist in May. I couldn't see the pulmonologist. His first opening was in September. So from May till September, it took me to get to see a pulmonologist. And I saw the pulmonologist.
And that's a lung guy, right? A
Yeah,
lung doctor.
pulmonologist is a lung doctor, right? Deals with your lungs. He helped me. He put me on albuterol. He suggested that I needed other things, other medications, but the other medications cost $700 a month. With my insurance, they cost $500 a month. I couldn't afford them. Um, I still really went on by about November. It was actually the day after election day. I was in the hospital again with lung failure,
Wow.
and that's when kind of my road back to somewhat of health has begun. Uh, I had lung failure. I was in the hospital. I had literally a pulmonology team set up for me, that would visit me each day, different members of the team, and they gave me plans how to get well. And the medication that the pulmonologist wanted me on, he gave me a prescription for it. I contacted the company. Um, I now have that medication, and I have it for free. I don't have to pay for it. Um,
Good job.
yeah, I have it. I have it for a year for free. It's an inhaler that helps my lungs, helps me breathe.
So the depression connection was just going through all that.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really depressed through all that. I was,
That's amazing.
yeah, I mean, depression, to me is like, darkness. You don't want to get out of bed. You don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
I wanted to do things. I
Yeah.
was really excited. I was happy. If you remember, at the time, one of the guests you've had on, Matthew Ho, was running for senator,
Mhm.
and I tried to do some things for him. I wasn't able to do a lot, but I did go to the court hearing for him.
Oh,
That he
right.
had to sue to get on the ballot, and I was able to write some things, and so I was excited. I wanted to get out of bed every day. The problem was I couldn't sleep. Every hour I would wake up and coughing, and
Mhm.
but I don't think I was depressed.
Yeah.
I was excited. I loved my apartment. I loved my cats. I loved my home.
Yeah.
Occasionally I would have a friend like Peg visit.
That's right.
The one time you visited me that morning. So it wasn't really depression. I had a lot of anxiety. Anxiety being that, and this was for about 2 years ongoing, because I really came down with COVID in March of 2020. So for about 2 years ongoing, I found it difficult just to go grocery shopping or to
Mm.
get my hair cut. I would excessively, I would run out of breath, and I felt like I was going to faint and pass out. And and then even if I was okay, the anxiety would kick in, kind of like a PTSD
Right.
thing, because there was a time where I almost did pass out, and then that memory would come back, and it would just create more anxiety,
Like a panic almost.
panic attack. Yeah. Um, but anyway, just going to the, I skipped over down to the question that you were going to ask me about long COVID. What is it like dealing with it? It's difficult, but I, because of the medications I'm on and the treatments that I've been able to get, and specifically the medication Trelegy, which is an inhaler that I take, and I now have, I'm doing better. Let's just say I can sleep at night,
Yeah.
and just being able to sleep at night is makes my world different. I'm still not able to do many social activities. I have to say no, I can't do it physically. I'm still not able to walk very long without stopping and catching my breath. But when I went into the hospital, I could barely walk 10 feet.
Mm.
And now I could walk maybe a quarter of a mile or a half a mile.
Mm.
Um, so it's better.
Good. So you've been through it quite a bit. You had a stint of homelessness when the economy tanked at one point, and then you've had some health issues recently.
Yeah.
So you're very resilient coming through so much.
Yeah, I don't know if it's resilient. What other choice? When I moved here, I mean, it's an important part that of my mental health. When I moved here in 2009, I moved here sight unseen. I had, very little savings, very little money. I could afford to move here, but I didn't have much money. All of a sudden I'm in a new city. I thought I had a
Mm.
job at NC State. I had spoken to them before I moved here, and then when I went there, uh, they didn't have the job for me.
Mm.
The job was tutoring athletes, which I had done in Florida at Florida Atlantic University. And so I lived right across from NC State. I thought I had a job there. I didn't. Now I'm in a place where I don't know where I'm going. I've never been to Raleigh before.
Oh gosh.
I couldn't find work, and eventually I lost my apartment, and I became homeless.
Mm.
And I was able to get some help at the Southwest Wilmington Center. Sometimes you can get in there, and then other times you can't. And when you can't, I would have to sleep at the 24-hour McDonald's, or try to stay
Mhm.
there, or go to the library when it opened and try to catch some Z's there. Um, it wasn't very long that I ended up at the Healing Place in Raleigh, and I was there for a time. It was a very difficult experience for me, and I was back homeless again, and I just felt like I didn't want to live, and I attempted suicide. So what did I do? I rented a hotel room. I took a bunch of pills, and I was going to slit my wrists. And that's really the only solution I thought that was available.
Mm.
I didn't really do a good job. I didn't slit my wrists. I took the pills. They knocked me out, and I woke up the next day. And the
I'm so
next,
glad. I want to say I
yeah,
didn't know that. I've
yeah,
never heard that before. So I'm so
yeah,
glad you're
yeah.
here with
And
us
it's
today.
just, of course, I'm glad to also today. But I woke up, and I had just wandered into downtown Raleigh. Um, and was just sitting on a park bench, and just but really by miracle, a Raleigh ambassador came by. Um, they patrol around downtown, these Raleigh ambassadors, and this guy came by on a bicycle, and he said, "Hey, are you okay?"
Mm.
And I just kind of told him, what I was going through, what happened, and he said, "Well, let's just stay right here." He says, "I'm gonna call somebody," and he called, I believe he called a policeman,
Okay.
and they took me over to Holly Hill Hospital. And I stayed in Holly Hill Hospital for several weeks in a program there. And from there, they now sent me to Southwest Wilmington Center Men's Shelter, but I had a permanent bed.
Okay.
And it was all arranged through Holly Hill. So now now I wasn't homeless. I had a permanent bed in the shelter. And eventually in a short period of time, I got a job. I started working. I would go to work. I would come back to the shelter. I worked quite a bit. I worked for the Carolina Ballet, and then I would come back to the shelter in the evenings. I kind of worked split shifts there, so I would work in the morning. In the afternoons, I would just do whatever. I'd go back and work at the night there, and then I'd go back to the shelter. But I wasn't homeless. I actually had a place to live. And through staying there for several months, I was able to save enough money and get an apartment. And since that time, I have not been homeless. So if you've never gone through that experience, it's hard to explain. But I am extremely grateful every day I wake up to have a home. Just because of that. Sometimes I'll hear people complain about their house. My apartment is just like that. You'll never hear me complain. I love the place I live in. It's a studio apartment. It's very comfortable. It's very nice. But I'm always grateful just for that fact. So I'm never ungrateful. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for your courage. It takes a lot to share those dark times, and you really just showed a lot of resilience. And when I share my dark times, I say I'm strong like crabgrass. I just keep coming back, and you seem like you just have a lot of stick-to-itiveness, and that you've really been through a lot, and I'm grateful that you're here.
Yeah, I mean, not really. I mean, I've been through a lot, but I mean, I'm no different than you. I mean, I get up in the morning, I put my clothes on, and I shouldn't. I'm not. I don't have the mental health issues that I used to suffer with. I'm pretty happy and grateful. I have a lot of activities to do with the organizations I'm working on. Playing music. I'm going to start performing in June. I have two cats that I adore, and I just love them. And I have everything really materially that I want. I live pretty simply. I learned a long time ago. This is just for me. A long time ago, I used to have a house, and then I had a house and the tools, and I had everything. I like to, and I used to collect things. I used to add to. I used to always add to. Now I try to
declutter.
I always get rid of things. When I don't need something, I give it away. I mean, I don't need. I have what I need.
Right.
And a lot of people that even my neighbors, they're always adding to. I have neighbors that are pat racks, and or is that right?
Pack rat. Yep.
Pack rats. Sorry, and their places are stuffed with material things, and I'm just the opposite. I have what I need. I have what I want, and there's a saying that when you will always get what you need.
Right.
And when your needs become your wants, then you have it made, and
right.
And that's where I'm at. I'm not wealthy. I don't go on cruises or trips. I don't desire to. I mean, I've traveled when I was younger. I traveled a lot, but
my grandmother always said, if you live within your means, you'll always feel rich.
And that's true.
Like that.
Yeah, and that's true. I feel very lucky and fortunate these days.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. So I'm gonna give a shout out to my grandma O'Connor, the late Mildred Rooney O'Connor, who was a single mother in the 40s and 50s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, raising 5 children, and she kept them all together, and was probably one of the first women in Alcoholics Anonymous in Buffalo, New York. And it's not always easy, but we make it, don't we? So tell us about your recovery. You've come a long way. You've done work, you have your music. Was there any treatment or anything special that helped you?
I mean, Alcoholics Anonymous. I went to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was involved very heavily for many years, and I started groups. I ran groups. I went to international conventions,
Mm-hmm.
which is just an amazing thing.
Mm.
State conventions. I was very active at one time. Um, I don't currently attend Alcoholics Anonymous, and partly because after a relapse, I used to go to meetings and I would drink after the meetings, and
Sure. It
I find
happens.
that what has helped me in my in being recovery more so is that I'm passionate about things. When I was in the period of going to AA and then drinking, I wasn't being myself. I wasn't doing the things I wanted to do.
Hmm.
I was just surviving. I had a job I didn't want. I lived in a place I didn't want.
Hmm.
Uh, I briefly was married for a short time, and I woke up one day and realized I didn't even like the person I was married to, and that's just not a great feeling.
No.
Um, so, yeah, I'm not.
Been there.
Yeah, what's that? Yeah.
Been there.
So, yeah. When you wake up and you realize that you're married to someone you don't even like them, it's not really a lot of fun. So I keep myself happy by doing things that I enjoy doing, and I feel blessed that I'm able to do what I do today.
Mm-hmm.
um uh as I said, I'm getting back into playing music. I hadn't for a bunch of years, not because I didn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
In Raleigh, North Carolina, and just many places across the country, there's very few places for musicians to play these days.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be places everywhere. When I played, there was coffee shops everywhere that I
Right.
would go, and I'd just say, "Hey, I'd like to play here." I'd bring my guitar, I'd audition a tune. They say, "When do you want to play?" And I made pretty good money doing it. We used to charge cover charges at coffee shops. The places would be packed. I played in a duo for many years, and we were pretty good. We were very good, actually, and so we would pack the places out.
Now, where
We
was that? And did you
It
have
was
a team?
In Fort Myers, Florida. I played at a place called the Sweet Bean Cafe every weekend.
Oh, fun.
Every weekend, and then we played at local bars. We would play on cruise ships. We played everywhere. We
Wow.
played for a house opening one time.
What were you called?
So our band was called the Affordables,
I like that.
and yeah, I actually did too. I came up with the name. I came up with the name Broken Sound, and my partner said, "No, I don't like it." I said, "Well, what do you like him?" He said, "I like the Affordables." I said, "The Affordables?" He said, "Yeah, because anybody could afford to have us play at their place." Because when we started, we made just a few bucks, but in a very short time, we were making, 150, $200 each a night. And
Wow.
yeah. Um, so in downtown Raleigh right now, there's very few places, if any, to play.
Mm.
Live music is kind of an extinct thing, and it's
Mhm.
not just my opinion. When I was getting a colonoscopy, the nurse that was assisting me, she produces music, and she says, "Yes." She says, "I agree." She says, "I barely have anywhere to put musicians in these days." She lives in North Raleigh.
Mm.
Um, um, Everything is that used to be open, that had live music, is closed now, or has been taken over and corporatized. And house music and sports bars are the big thing everywhere.
Is that
Everywhere you go. What's that?
is that COVID related, or that's just
No, this was before COVID.
okay?
Yeah, this is before COVID. And
Mm.
even musicians that um stream their music, streaming is a big thing. Musicians stream their music. It's very hard for them to make any money.
Mm.
Uh I just had talked to a musician the other day that, if they have 300,000 streams, which is a lot, 300,000,
Yeah.
and very few people have that many. Um, they make about $1,500, and they have to split it up 5, 6 ways for the band.
Mm,
So it's very hard to make money as a musician,
yeah,
unless you're playing arenas and arenas and stadiums. But
yeah.
the live music venues are gone.
I've heard people call that a winner take all economy, where you have a few people in the creative area that are just extraordinarily successful and everybody listens to them and they're very wealthy.
Mhm.
And then the other 98%, there's just not much opportunity.
No, that's true.
Yeah. So tell
Yeah,
me,
it's true. And it's the same with it's the same in many areas. So journalists,
yeah,
journalism, newspapers have shut down. They've consolidated. They've actually laid off, thousands and thousands of journalists. So
right.
if you're a journalist, how do you make a living? And some journalists are able to scratch out a living, by getting subscribers.
Mm,
Many
right.
aren't.
Right. Let's steer back to mental health for a
Mhm.
minute here. When you needed support, what did you find helpful from other folks and what was not so helpful?
The most helpful thing was fellowship of others and unconditional love.
Right.
That's
Oh,
what I believe. That's what I believe got me sober and helped me stay sober. And that's what
mm,
I believe today keeps me sane. I have friends, several friends that have been on this show actually in the past, and
mm,
they've been through similar things, and we can talk.
yeah.
Um, I wouldn't say I have a lot of friends, but the ones I have are very good friends, and we talk almost every day.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
I have a lot of acquaintances.
Sure.
I have 200 Facebook friends. Do I talk to all 200 Facebook friends? No,
Yeah,
maybe 7 or 8.
I know what you mean.
Um, so
Yeah, some of my
yeah,
Facebook friends I've actually met.
right. Most of my Facebook friends are just people I went to high school with and graduated with, or maybe worked with 45 years ago.
Right, right.
Uh,
And I
yeah,
think that's a really valuable place for Facebook, is keeping in touch with people
yeah,
who are far away, who
yeah.
you shared some experience with at some point, which is now years in the past.
Mhm.
Um, so we're moving up, getting close to 8 o'clock. I'll fast forward to the last question, which is always one of my favorites. What gives you hope?
So what gives me hope? Um, well, several friends of mine are activists
Mm,
in the what maybe you call political, but I call social cultural areas. I engage with them. I engage with people who are positive. I engage with people I write. I'm on Twitter a lot, even Facebook. But I have my own website and I write, and I engage the organization that I work in. I engage with people that are pushing positive energy, and it gives me hope and it
mm,
makes me excited. Then there's an old quote. So I was lucky enough to meet the family of Harry Chapin. Harry Chapin was
oh.
a great artist and humanitarian.
Cats in the
Um,
Cradle.
Cats in the Cradle, right? Harry Chapin wrote the song "Cats in the Cradle" with his wife, and my cousin John used to promote Harry Chapin, and he was friends with him. And Harry Chapin died in 1981 in a car crash in Long Island.
Hmm,
So I never met him, but through my cousin John, I've met the entire Chapin family. I've been at multiple events with, all the, I mean, I've personally met most of the family many times. And my cousin John introduced me to Pete Seeger. And Pete Seeger was Harry Chapin's idol. And Pete Seeger, the great
wow.
folk musician. Yeah, so I've met and spoken to Pete Seeger many times, and he's as genuine and real a guy as you can imagine. He's all about, when you see him, he's just nothing but a t-shirt and jeans, totally unpretentious. Great musician, worldwide known, great folk musician. He was also blacklisted in the 50s and 60s because he had, I guess, one time attended a communist meeting. That was during the very dark time when artists were blacklisted. He was blacklisted, and he was, good friends with Woody Guthrie. Woody Guthrie was an avid socialist, and Woody Guthrie used to have on his guitar, "This guitar kills fascism."
Oh my. I didn't know
Well,
that.
Woody Guthrie wrote the song "This Land Is Your Land,"
Right.
and "This Land Is Your Land" was a socialist creed. It was actually an angry retort to Irving Berlin's song "God Bless America."
Oh, wow.
And the
So we're
original.
not getting political because
No,
I
no, no
told
political.
Scott
This
in
is
advance
musical. This is
we get
musical.
political.
This is not political. This is musical, but musically, "This Land Is Your Land" that Woody Guthrie wrote was originally titled "God Blessed America," was the original title of it. So he was making a retort to "God Bless America," and there's several lyrics that were left out of the song that people don't know. And one time I saw Pete Seeger on the street, and I said, "Hey Pete, I'm trying to find the lyrics of this song." He said, "Well, write your address down and I'll send it to you." And he sent me a postcard. Several times he sent me postcards. But anyway, to sum it all up with Pete Seeger was he told Harry Chapin, and I remember to this day, Harry Chapin always remembered why did he do the things he did? Because he asked Pete Seeger, and Pete Seeger said, "Harry, I don't know if anything I've ever done has made a difference in this world." And of course, he was being very humble because he worked on saving the rivers and he did many things to help others and encourage and inspire others. But anyway, the quote that Harry always remembered that Pete told him was that, when you do these things, you're involved. And this is how I feel with being with you tonight, Peg. I feel the same way being here tonight. I'm involved with the people with the bright eyes and the bright hearts, the live eyes and the live hearts. And that's something that is very powerful.
That's very beautiful. Thank you.
And I think we're friends in a way for that reason. And we share some other friends that are kind of similar.
Wow, I love that. I'm very grateful to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I can see the brightness in your eyes.
Wow.
And it shows your spirit.
Well, that's I don't know, humbling and beautiful, and I'm very grateful to hear it. Okay, that's gonna wrap up the interview part of the show. Before we move to our video of the week, I want to thank very heartily our volunteer working behind the scenes, Bridget Williamson. She helps us out in the office. She's helped us out a couple times on Thursdays with NAMI. Big shout out. Thank you, Bridget. And of course, a heartfelt thanks to our guest, my friend Scott Satalino. I'm so grateful that you're here. You're always good to talk to, well-spoken and just so interesting. Now we've got a video of the week. And we're sharing this lighthearted dog video because we get into heavier waters, deeper waters, and so sometimes you just want to watch a cute little dog named Roxy Morrison.
Yellow blue summertime, watching as our worries float away. Feels like everything's going our way. Feels like everything's going our way. Red and pink lemonade, killing time underneath the shade.
Oh my goodness. Who doesn't love a cute little beagle video? Oh, all right. So now let me check the chat. We may have some questions there. We've got let's see. We've got plenty of time to take questions from you, members of our virtual studio audience, here on Zoom and on Facebook Live. Do some quick announcements. Please join us for our walk. If you weren't here when I made the announcement previously, we have a really exciting event called NAMI Walks 2023. It will be at 9 a.m. on Saturday, May 20th at Perimeter Park in Morrisville. We'd love to see you there. Just come, be part of the energy, share a recovery story, hear a recovery story, blow bubbles with the bubble machine. We've got all kinds of fun, goofy things to do. A lot of fun resource tables set up. You can walk, you can not walk, you can fundraise, you can not fundraise. Just join us and be part of the NAMI experience. We'd love to see you there. Let me check our Facebook recording. See if we've got any questions there. Check. That's always goofy. All right. Is there correspondence I can get to get a newsletter? Oh, where's the NAMI group in Fayetteville? Okay. Interesting question from Debbie in Fayetteville. Yeah, you can absolutely get involved with our Fayetteville affiliate. We would love to see you there. The name of that group is NAMI of Cumberland, Harnett, and Lee counties. They have a lot going on. They have support groups, classes, just a wonderful group of people. They have a series of community inclusion events also. If you want to reach out to us, I'll put my name in the chat shortly. What instrument do you play and with whom? What kind of music do you play? That's a fun one. That's you.
I play acoustic guitar. I play acoustic rhythm guitar and piano. So I have a little portable keyboard, but it sounds like a piano. It's weighted keys and a vocalist, and I play a little harmonica as well. I'll be performing mostly original songs with some select cover songs, and the type of music I play is I would call folk rock, classic rock with some blues and jazz sounds mixed in. I have always played and sometimes just folk songs, but I tend to be more folk rock as opposed to just folk. And moving here to Raleigh actually has changed a little bit of the way I play, in the fact that this is the Piedmont here in Raleigh, and I came in contact with something I'd never heard of before, the Piedmont blues. And the Piedmont blues is a certain type of blues that's very different than say the New Orleans jazz blues or the Chicago blues. There's different blues from around the country. The Piedmont extends from the Pennsylvania to Georgia. Oh. And it's we're right in the Piedmont, and this is a topographically interesting, if you like to know. The Piedmont is west of the flatlands, the coastal plains, and east of the mountains. And it's Piedmont's known for its valleys and creeks and hills, just like we have here in Raleigh. And the Piedmont blues is a little bit of what I'm kind of mixed into my sound.
Neat. All right, got some fun questions. What are your hobbies and why?
My hobbies? So I like to read. I watch TV. When I say TV, I'm kind of stuck on just a few shows I watch. I love to watch Perry Mason.
Oh, there you go.
I like to watch Columbo. Those are two of my favorite shows.
Classics.
That's mostly what I watch.
Let's say something.
Yeah.
If we've got any younger folks in the crowd, those are sort of mystery type shows. Before mystery shows were, as you know, before there were millions of them. Those were like the classic ones.
Yeah, and they still are.
That's right. That's right.
I don't have cable TV. I threw cable TV out of my house for multiple reasons, not just the cost. Um, I just have an antenna, so I watch local channels, and PBS. I like to watch PBS. Uh, my other hobbies, I like to walk. I like to sit on my porch, grill. Um, um, that's about it. Pretty simple. I used to play basketball. It's something I can't really do right now. But that's about it.
Hmm. There was a question on Facebook about, did you receive any helpful treatment for depression or alcoholism?
Yeah, I mentioned that I was in a rehab when my sister was. They convinced me to stay there. I have been also in. I was in a hospital just for depression, not for alcoholism. I was sober at the time, but I was in a hospital for depression and mental health issues. And I saw a counselor. I think one of the best things I ever did was I went to a counselor. I've heard from a lot of people that today it's very hard to get to see someone, a mental
Right.
health specialist. Someone literally told me that it was a 10-year wait.
10 years.
This is what somebody told me. But there's a lengthy wait, I
Lengthy,
believe.
sure.
Yeah, I believe.
Months.
Months. Okay, months. Yeah, I don't know. But and then there's cost as well. I was just fortunate. I was in Fort Myers, Florida in the 90s. I went to see this counselor. She was a Christian counselor, and it was basically what can you afford to pay?
Right.
She took me for what I could afford to pay. So I paid her like $20 for a session. And
Aw.
and then she personally sent me to a psychiatrist who charged me $10 for
Aw,
10 minutes.
that's
And
awesome.
he would monitor my medication. So I mean, I was very fortunate. I believe. I don't know where you can see a psychiatrist for $10, but
Yeah.
yeah, he charged me $10 for 10 minutes, and he just worked in coordination with the woman. So yeah, those were the helpful times. And then of course, as I said, I was in Holly Hill Hospital in 2010.
Mhm.
2010 in March of 2010.
Mm. All right. So counseling was helpful at some point. The
Mhm.
medication was helpful.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. And today, I mean, I use friends as counselors.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Peer support.
yeah. I mean, I have a tough thing. I dump it on somebody.
And they do back to you.
What do you call it? Dumping it. I just find that if something is bothering me and I tell someone about it, I get rid of it.
Yeah,
And then I also get the feedback of, hey, well, here's a better way to deal with it.
sure.
So I don't know. Sometimes I guess maybe I have a little wisdom, but I kind of prefer what my friend Leah on Facebook said. She says, I don't have any more wisdom than I used to. I'm just too old to do the shit I used to do. Which I think is really funny.
There's something to be said for
Yeah.
that. Yeah. You don't
And,
have the energy to
I don't
play
have
games.
the energy to do stupid
Yeah.
things I did when I was younger. I really don't. But
Yeah,
not that I want to.
I like that too. That is funny. Like whatever that thing is that inspires us to mess up our lives when we're young, and like at some point you just get too tired to do that.
Yeah.
I'd say that's a form of wisdom. I like that, Bridget. Thank you for that. Bridget supports us. Um, okay. Next question. You spoke of anxiety. What do you feel relaxes you?
Well, breathing relaxes me. Um, the psychiatrist that I mentioned seeing for $10, he taught me this long ago, and it's something that I have used on occasion ever since. When you go to sleep, if you do deep breaths,
Right.
I'm not counting sheep. I'm breathing in and out slowly,
Mhm.
and it makes you fall asleep.
Yeah.
It's a way to just all of a sudden you're asleep. You don't even know it.
Yeah. Very
Um,
calming.
yeah, I mean, I actually, I have medication that I take that helps me sleep. I take medication for anxiety, that I also need, that, for my breathing. That's why it was really prescribed for me. My
Mm.
breathing, it helps calm my breathing down to a level, otherwise I can hyperventilate or feel like, I can't breathe.
Mhm.
Um, and there was something else I was thinking, oh, and then, I sleep at night. I have oxygen machine at home. I have oxygen at home in case I need it.
Mm.
Which I do. And at night, when I sleep, I put oxygen in,
Mm.
and I put it in. It goes right in your nose, hooks around your ears. You really don't even know you have it.
Yeah.
It's not like a cumbersome thing. I don't have an issue that some people have with, it's known as CPAP, or where
Mhm.
people stop breathing when they're sleeping. I don't really have that issue.
Sleep apnea.
Yeah, sleep apnea. I was tested for that, but I do have oxygen, and when I go to
Mhm.
sleep at night, I put it in. And sometimes I don't, but for the most part lately, I'm just using it. The doctor said use it anyway,
Mhm.
and there's nothing really better for you than oxygen.
Is that the chronic bronchitis, COVID? Is that a result of those conditions?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and my lung failure.
Mm. Wow.
So oxygen is very good for you, right? But so it's just something that I do.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you for, it takes a lot to be candid and vulnerable, and I appreciate your sharing with us and answering the questions. I think you kind of touched on this, what helps with keeping sober. Feel like you've spoken to that, but if you have anything to add, feel free.
Yeah, knowing what alcohol does will do to my heart if I drink. And I saw the cardiologist last year. I was just fortunate last year to have a silver healthcare plan, which was a very good plan. I no longer can afford it, so I don't have it this year. And there's a kind of a double-edged sword. If I did have the health insurance, I wouldn't get the trilogy that I need.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So since I don't have insurance, I can get the trilogy, right?
Direct from the
Direct from
manufacturer.
the manufacturer. Yeah. So I just couldn't afford to renew my insurance. They jacked up the rates to something that I couldn't afford to pay for, as well as the out of pocket. Um, uh, so
Sobriety.
yeah, what was the question again exactly? Because I did want to answer, had something else to say.
What do you feel helps with sobriety?
Yeah, so what helps, talking to my friends, peer support, engaging in activities that I enjoy doing.
Yeah,
Um,
and I've shared on the
uh,
show that I'm
yeah,
in AA too, and those are all pure AA strategies,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and the AA slogans. I mean, they remain with me from the first times I've learned them. Knowing that whatever happens, this too shall pass.
Right.
There's just many sayings, many tools, in what they call in AA the slogans
Right.
that are helpful. I had, I mean, I still recall and practice things that people in AA told me. One friend of mine told me one time, he said, there's good examples in AA and there's bad examples. He said, he used to say, you're just being a good bad example. Well, he he used to tell me that when I wasn't doing the right thing. But so I try not to be a good bad example. I try to be a good example.
A good
A good
example.
example, right. Another thing this guy told me, and I've never forgotten it, is and it helps from getting angry or staying angry, I should say,
Uh,
or living in resentment, I mean,
Yeah.
anger is a natural emotion. To get angry is normal, but to stay there is very unhealthy. So, if somebody says something to you, if they're right, why get angry?
mhm.
And if they're wrong, why get angry? And that's
That's a good
another
way of putting it.
that's another helpful way to look at things that I use.
Mhm.
And I use it a lot. Just what I see from the world around me. There's a lot of dysfunction in the world. There's a lot of um, craziness in the outside world. I'm someone that likes to stay home. When COVID started and we were locked down, I was like, I don't go anywhere anyway. This
Yeah.
wasn't a big deal for me. I mean, I'm not saying that lockdowns were good, but I like my home. I like to be at home.
Some of us felt it more than others. As an introvert,
Yeah.
I did not feel it nearly as much as some other folks.
Yeah,
I know what
yeah.
you mean.
I mean,
And I have to acknowledge the crazy word, being a NAMI person, that's,
right.
kind of
Yeah,
frowned upon,
yeah. I mean, that's true. That is true.
but
Let's just say there's mentally unhealthy people.
there you go.
I mean, it's quite evident, with all the shootings in society and the warring factions. Well, we learned that in AA.
Yes,
The world is full of warring factions.
that is exactly the truth. And there
Yeah.
is a lot of division. And
Yeah.
I hope that by having conversations like this, where we just open our hearts and keep it real, I hope in some small way it helps.
Yeah, and sometimes I do use I shouldn't use the word crazy. Sometimes I notice that I use words that just were ingrained in me that I don't use anymore. I try not to use.
I do the same thing. It's very easy to slip with that one.
Yep.
All right, another question. We've got 5 in the line. That's a long one. What do your days look like?
So I wake up in the morning, I have coffee, I check my messages, I check emails, I check Twitter, I write a lot on Twitter. When I say write a lot, I just write about politics and media and art and social cultural things. I don't write about anything else. Some people, are on Twitter, right? Hey, I went to the bathroom. You know what I mean? I had pizza for lunch. It was great. Look what I made for dinner and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I don't use it for personal things. I use it for politics and media that I write about, and social and cultural issues. And so I check that. Check my Facebook. I have coffee. I feed my cats. I clean their litter box. Throw out the garbage.
Mm,
I have breakfast. I don't really I do write and working on my organizations. I don't really do other things at the time. I'm not able to work at the moment,
mhm,
and haven't been for the past year. Um, I collect Social Security, so that's helpful.
mhm,
It's not enough to live on,
right.
as many people may tell you, or you may hear from many people, but I've been able to get by. And
Mhm.
I check the weather, I take a walk. I love to I hope a thunderstorm comes. I love thunderstorms, especially on my porch. The
Oh,
rain is beautiful.
fun to look out at
Oh,
it.
it's great. I play the guitar, I play the piano.
Yeah.
And that, those are my days. I go grocery shopping. I try to walk a little bit each day. Um, I'm supposed to walk 30 minutes a day. I don't
Mm,
always, but I try to walk
mhm.
as much as I can. And some days, I do the 30 minutes, to the grocery store. Um,
I think you have to honor when your body needs rest and a little bit of slowdown.
mhm.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm just not physically able to do things I used to do.
Mhm. Right, right. Let's see what else we have here. Um, do you have a support group in place?
I would say my peers.
Mhm. Informal ones.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, if you go to Alcoholics Anonymous, I mean, right in the beginning of the book, it tells you we know very little. We
Of
know,
course.
it says we know only a little, and that there's some people that have issues like that Alcoholics Anonymous. There's some people that have alcohol problems that Alcoholics Anonymous is not helpful for.
Of course.
And Alcoholics Anonymous tells you that. I mean, you will see many people in the rooms who will say that, oh, it's the only way. Well, it's not what the book says.
Yeah.
It's not what the book says. It's not what professionals say. In the beginning of the book, it talks about the doctors that Bill Wilson talked to that were helpful to him. He mentions Carl Jung. And Carl Jung noticed, this is right in the beginning of the book, that Carl Jung noticed some people just have overwhelming religious or emotional experiences and never drink again and never go to AA. And there's also some people who are just heavy drinkers and they're not alcoholics and they're able to stop. If a situation arises that their wife says, hey, if you don't stop drinking, I'm going to leave you. Some people can just stop and never drink again.
Right.
And those are just heavy drinkers. So there's many ways that are support groups, I believe. My support group is my peers. I don't know how, like when I look at my friends and peers, sometimes I wonder how I could live without them. And they've shared the same thing with me.
Right.
Of
course.
That there's just such a bond. As far as I don't actively attend Alcoholics Anonymous, I know people that do, and I see them occasionally and talk to them.
Sure. There's so much to learn from Alcoholics Anonymous, regardless of whether you have an addiction disorder. It's just a great program. This is a good time for me to promote NAMI support groups, since the question asked about support groups. We have a listing of virtual support groups on our website, naminc.org. You can find a list of virtual offerings and attend from anywhere in the state or even outside North Carolina. We also have all of our in-person groups listed around the state. So Charlotte, Durham, Fayetteville, Raleigh, check it out. We might have a live group in person near you too. Question: have you ever used the Wellness Recovery Action Plan? It's called WRAP.
I've never even heard of it.
Okay, well, we've got some facilitators. Our board president, Diane Crescenda, who was on the show when we started, probably is still with us, is a facilitator in WRAP, Wellness Recovery Action Planning. And it allows anyone to spell out, if I come to a situation where my mental health declines and I need help, I need inpatient care. Here are the meds I'm allergic to. Here's who's going to watch my cat. Here's who I want to come visit me. And maybe, here's who I don't want to see for the first week because I can't quite see them when I'm super vulnerable. It just allows you to spell everything out in advance when you're feeling well, and then things will go smoother when you're not feeling well. So great question on WRAP. Do you have any pets?
I have 2 cats. And I've always been a dog person.
I support that.
But about 2005, I saw 2 cats that needed a home, and I took them home with me.
Oh, where did you see them?
What's that?
Where did you see them?
And so they were in Pet Supermarket, and Moo Moo and Mojo, and they were in the same cage together. And I stopped in there on a Saturday when I was driving my wife to work, and my ex-wife, and the next Saturday I drove over to work. She says, let's stop in the Pet Supermarket again. And they were there.
Aww.
And the third weekend, Saturday in a row, I drove her to work, and she said, let's stop in the Pet Supermarket again. And the third time I went in, and it said 2 for 1. I mean, you're not really buying them. What you're doing is paying for, the care that they get. They spay them, they give them all their shots. and it was like $65 for each one. Well, the third week it was 2 for 1. It was 65 for both, and I just was angry that they were still there. And I'm angry, maybe isn't the word.
It was
I was unhappy that they were still there because Mojo was 5 and
Aw.
Moo Moo was about 1.5, and they were in the same cage. And
Mm,
I just thought no one's going to take these cats.
yeah.
Because while I would be there, everyone would run in, and the little kids would say, "Mommy, let's look at the kittens." Everyone wants a kitten.
Gotcha.
So I
Okay.
took Mojo and Moo Moo home, and the first night Mojo crawled on my chest and just kissed my face,
Oh,
and he did that for the next 15 years.
adorable.
Yeah, every night. So he was super happy,
Mm,
and Moo Moo was a little different.
temperament.
Temperament, yeah, and I just realized, well, maybe Moo Moo grew up differently. I thought maybe
Mm,
Mojo grew up with I just pictured he came from an older woman who treated him so
mm,
nice, and he just was because he was so
he
socially
was
adept.
loving.
And
Yeah.
Moo Moo, when people came in, would run and hide and would hide behind the toilet. Moo Moo was scared of everything.
Aw.
Moo Moo would scratch and bite me, even though Moo Moo wanted to be next to me.
Aw.
But it wasn't a. Oh, Moo Moo passed away in 2014 or 2015. I had to put Moo Moo down. She was very sick.
Aw.
And Mojo, he died peacefully in his sleep on Christmas night when he was 20 years old.
Oh my
On
gosh.
Christmas night,
Ripe old age.
which was very peaceful and spiritual in a way, because not only was it Christmas night, but he just laid down and passed away. And he
Yeah.
was never sick until that point. That was the first day he ever woke up and didn't eat or drink. And I looked at him and something didn't seem right. I put a shirt over him. Um, and he passed away, and I didn't have any, I didn't really have any regrets. I wished I would have
Yeah.
pet him for those last 2 hours, but I didn't know. I just, looked around and turned around after a couple hours, and he was dead.
Poor baby. I've
But
heard cats like to go off on their own when they're not
yeah,
feeling well.
yeah. So in June, I just said I would get another cat eventually. Well, I was happy not having any cats for about 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
I didn't have to vacuum. With cats, I
Exactly.
vacuum the house 3 times a day, at least, sometimes
Wow.
4. Because just for their cat litter, cat hair.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to vacuum for 6 months. I mean, not that I didn't have to vacuum, but I didn't have to vacuum
Like
regularly.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was okay, but I always said I would get another cat, and in June of 2020, one needed a home, little kitty, and I took her in.
Yeah.
And she's a ragamuffin breed, very long hair and very
Oh.
very lazy. All she likes to do is sleep and snuggle, and she is really good at both of them.
Nice.
She sleeps a lot and she snuggles. She sleeps right on my shoulder, and she loves nose kissing,
Oh.
and sleeping right on my shoulder.
She sounds like the
So
perfect pet.
she's lovable. And then of course I took in from my friend Alyssa, our friend Alyssa.
Right.
She had kind of taken in Charlie, the homeless guy. Charlie the
Okay.
cat, he was homeless. The neighbors of Alyssa had owned him. She knew that from his microchip. So people had owned him, but they threw him out and they didn't want him.
Oh.
And so Alyssa asked, he lived on Alyssa's porch for
Gotcha.
about a year and a half. And she asked me if I knew anyone, and I said, I'll take him. And I thought he was just an old guy and he was just gonna lay around, and turns out he's a lot of fun.
Oh, good.
And he's this is not something that this is something that's interesting. I looked up just the other day, I looked up cat years to human years, and Charlie and I are the same age.
That's
No.
great.
So if anyone wants to know, if a cat, the first year of a cat's life is 15 human years.
Oh, wow.
The second year is 9, and then every year after that is 4.
Oh,
This is a formula, and this is how you calculate. Like a dog's life is 7 years. Every year is 7 years. Well, for a cat, 15 is the first year, 9 is the second year, and then every year after that is 4 years. So I looked it up, and I'm going to be 63. Charlie's 64,
Mhm.
and I wondered. No wonder we're so much alike. We're so much alike. We like to play, we like to sleep, we like to eat. And we're both at times grumpy.
You're simpatico.
Sometimes we're both a little grumpy, and
I support that.
we're just alike.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Cats are extremely
Yeah.
entertaining.
And he's the people that threw him out, he's a great cat. He's really
Did they move away from him? I feel like I heard that
I don't
story.
know. I don't know,
Okay.
but they didn't want him.
Poor baby.
Yeah, and it's not unusual, and especially in this day with the economy, we're kind of in a real little recession.
Yeah.
Housing prices are just skyrocketing.
Yes.
People take pets and then they realize they can't afford them.
That's
And
true.
so the shelters are full. Wake County, the shelter, they just announced recently that they're full to overflowing.
Especially for cats.
And they have animals that are on the way. The people that are
Oh.
bringing, in the future that have said, hey, we need to bring them there.
Right.
So if anyone wants to adopt, it's really the time.
Crucial time.
Yeah, and the economy does that, and the housing costs.
Yes.
I mean, I'm fortunate where I live. I paid $100 refundable deposit
Right. Right.
14 years ago. I've been living where I do for 13 years, and I don't pay anything monthly for my cats. So
That's wonderful.
yeah.
Wow.
But a lot of apartment complexes, I lived in one time. It's 200. You have to put $250. Sometimes it's 500
Or not, and not
for the
refundable.
deposit. It's not
Yeah.
refundable, and then you have to pay $25 or $50 a month.
The pet rent. Yeah.
Bed rent.
you
Yeah,
do.
I mean, so it's an extreme that people, even if they want the pets, they have to get rid of them because they can't afford them.
It happens far too
Yeah.
often, and it is super sad. All right, we do have one more question. You want to type it in? We're almost up to 8:30, so you've had a lot of questions coming in. Do you know of any local initiatives for decriminalizing addiction? Good question.
Yeah, and that's when you mentioned in the beginning I was going to talk. I haven't really said anything about the criminalization of addiction, but Matthew Ho, who you had on here, he speaks about that in his campaign. One of the major issues of his campaign
Right.
was the criminalization of addiction
And marijuana.
and the lack of health, and marijuana being illegal, the criminalization of addiction, and the lack of health care and mental care. That was those were one of the major
Right.
things of his campaign. And he would reply to people that said, well, a lot of these things are just like the Democratic Party. He says, no, I'm the only one who's running on the platform of Medicare for all
Right.
and the decriminalization of addiction. I was, this is something that I will say. It doesn't no longer bothers me, but I was in prison once for a very short time.
Hmm.
But I was in prison for being drunk.
For being drunk.
For being drunk. Yeah,
Huh.
that was the only reason. And
Wow.
I was standing outside of a bar, and I was exuberant and drunk, and a guy who was a police officer
Ooh.
was not in his police uniform, though. He was in plain clothes, and he put his hands on me.
Uh-oh.
And I just reacted the way any normal person would when someone puts their hands on you. I don't know he's a police officer.
Right.
So I was charged with battery on a law enforcement officer. Well, needless to say, I didn't batter the guy.
Sure.
But the law says that if you touch the police officer, so if I touched him, that's battery.
Good grief.
Now, if I touched you, that wouldn't be battery.
Right.
So what the police do is they enhance the punishment. They lower the bar and they enhance the punishment. And they do that for all crimes. For instance, now because of the protests in 2020 downtown Raleigh, they're criminalizing protests and dissent. It's very dangerous now for people to go to protests Because you can be associated by association, even though you haven't done anything. You could get a decades in prison now. That's what they're doing. And they're doing it not only in this state, but other states. And, because of what happened on January 6th, they're doing it there as well. So what I noticed in prison is that most of the people there, 80–90%, were either high on drugs or on alcohol when they did whatever they were convicted for. And just as a last thing to say, and this is I think this is very important about our society. There's a great journalist, Chris Hedges, who works in prisons. He was a war correspondent for 20 years worked for the New York Times as well as the Dallas Morning News and the Christian Science Monitor. He was in war zones all over the world. He was the Mideast bureau chief for the New York Times during the war. So he talks a lot about war, but he's also a Presbyterian minister.
Wow.
He has a degree from Harvard Divinity School, and he teaches in prisons in New Jersey. And what he says is very true, and it's about our system. And I'm not trying to be political, but most people, if you ask them, is our political system just? They would say, no, it's not. Most people agree
I'll agree
that
with that.
there's two systems of justice, one for the rich and one for the poor. And
And race is an
yeah,
issue.
and that's not even a partisan thing. People who agree with that, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. It's pretty much consensus.
I think
but-
if we're gonna talk criminal justice, even though we're running
Yeah,
out of
yeah,
time, I
I-
want to say we got to talk about race too,
Yeah,
because
and
punishments
of
are so
course,
much harsher and over policing
of
is so
course,
bad.
of course. The New York City Police Department was convicted in a court of using stop and frisk, which is racist, and they still use it. And I have friends, I'm from New York, I have friends that were on the New York City Police Department who told me, I mean, they personally told me what they would do.
Wow.
And it wasn't legal stuff. They would give tickets to people that didn't do anything wrong, and they would arrest people that didn't do anything wrong.
What was
And
their incentive?
they had quotas.
Oh, good.
They
grief.
had quotas, and it's not only New York, cities all over the country have quotas that they have to give so many tickets and they have to arrest so many people. So a friend of mine said, he goes, well, one night I'm in this neighborhood that's mostly in Brooklyn, it's mostly older Jewish guys. He says, I can't arrest any of those people. He'd get in trouble, right?
Wow.
So he says, I just walked over to the neighborhood across the way, which was where the people of color lived, and I poached someone off the street. I
Wow.
poached them. He literally arrested a guy for loitering who was standing in front of his own building. And that happens all the time in New York. People stand in front of their own buildings and they get arrested and charged with loitering. How could you be loitering in front of your own building? Of course, this is a city where you're talking about an apartment building, maybe 30, 40 stories, right?
Exactly.
So like I'm on my porch, he's in front of his building.
Right.
But the point I wanted to make is that most of the people in prisons that Chris Hedges talks about, there's many people who are innocent.
Right. we
But
gotta
our
wrap this
system,
up.
yeah, and this is the wrap up, that our system is one of plea bargaining. And that they charge you, I face a similar thing. If you go to trial and you're convicted, you get 35 years. But here's a plea and we'll let you out maybe we'll just let you out with nothing, or we'll give you a year in prison. And sometimes people who are innocent, they go back and maybe they talk to their wife and they say, hey, if I go to trial, I'm going to get 35 years, and they may be completely innocent. And this is there are a lot of people who are innocent,
Right.
and but they were offering me 1 year, and the wife will say, take the 1 year.
So you just
I want
take
you
it.
home, and I personally know people who have done that.
It seems much less risky. We try to end on a
Yeah.
positive note.
Yeah,
We
well,
have
I mean,
1
it's
minute. We have 1 minute to turn this around.
well,
No
I mean,
pressure.
it's positive. It's positive that people know this.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's a start.
Yeah.
All right. There was one more question. We are right at 8:29. What do you say to inspire someone who uses drugs and alcohol and has problems with it and they don't change and they say they don't need help? Any 10-second answers there?
I don't know what you can do. You can tell them, what people do for relatives or friends is they have interventions,
Mm,
you know?
ooh, those are frowned upon. Those do not have good
No,
outcomes. Don't
yeah,
do
I mean,
that.
I don't, that's all, that's the only thing I've ever known of is intervention,
Yeah,
where people, get together. I mean, interventions have, I've heard from people that they've helped people. But I don't know that they're frowned upon or not. I'm not an expert. What do you do? I mean,
you go to Al-Anon and you try to be
yeah, I
transparent.
mean,
Stop
Al-Anon,
enabling.
yeah, Al-Anon is something I've been to Al-Anon. I mean, Al-Anon helps you learn how to cope with someone who's an alcoholic.
Right, right.
I read Al-Anon literature.
Oh, right, because of your mother.
Yeah. Well, not
Okay,
because of my mother, maybe because of you.
could be. That's
Well,
yeah.
didn't you say you were an Alcoholics Anonymous?
I was.
Yeah, so
You're
it's
not supposed to say
Al-Anon
it
is
on the show.
you said it. You said it.
He needs Al-Anon for me. I'm sure there are support groups available to deal with
Yeah.
PEG.
I mean, it wasn't because of my mother. It was for any, there's other
Various.
people. I mean, I have other people in my family. I really
Okay.
don't have much family left, but
Okay.
yeah.
Well, this has been a fun hour and a half. I want to thank everyone for being here with us tonight. Thank you, Scott, so much for
Thank you.
coming in. It was
Thank you.
really
I appreciate
cool.
the questions too, and I hope I've been a good example or a positive example. I hope I've said something that may help someone.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think your transparency and you're an articulate, courageous person. So thank you for coming and sharing your story.
Thank you for saying that.
And anyone who's out there feeling adrift tonight, whether it's alcohol, mental health, another question, give us a call at NAMI. We would like to help you find your way. Our helpline manager, Virginia Rodias, has a wonderful Bible-sized manual to recommend resources in your area. We understand what it's like to be on the outside, and we would love to help. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night. And there we